This episode is being sponsored by my favorite mobile puzzle game, Best Fiends. Okay guys, I need to tell you about Best Fiends. It's the game everyone's talking about. I love it because it's the perfect break for my true crime research. It still really challenges my brain because it's a puzzle game, and you know how I love solving puzzles, but it's a casual game so it doesn't stress me out, which is perfect these days. And lately, I've been using it as a fun way to connect with my friends and family while still social distancing like me. I haven't seen my brother in a while, so I've been playing Best Fiends with him. It's fun to casually compete with him since we're not doing that in person at the moment. This awesome mobile puzzle game is so much more than your average mobile puzzle game. It's 5-star rated with over 100 million downloads, thousands of fun levels, and tons of super cute characters to collect. They've created a whole world right on my phone. It's bright and colorful with great graphics, and there's a story all about these cute characters. I just unlocked Napoleon and love that he wears a cute little thimble as his crown and holds the matchstick as his scepter. Plus, I love his area bomb power. There are also new in-game challenges and events every month, so the game always feels fresh and you'll never be bored. You can even play the game without using Wi-Fi. No bandwidth? No problem. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on this game. So join me, my friends and family, and millions of other people who are already playing this fun puzzle game. Engage your brain with fun puzzles and collect tons of cute characters. Trust me, with over 100 million downloads, this 5-star rated mobile puzzle game is a must-play. Download Best Fiends free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends. This episode contains explicit and adult content. Listener discretion is advised. All cases and stories covered by this podcast are true stories involving real people. The opinions of the host and any interviewees are simply that, opinions. The credibility of any witnesses and what they say is to be determined by the listener. Everyone is presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. About 88 miles or 140 kilometers northeast of Hamilton, Ontario, is a small body of water named Mud Lake, which is immediately encircled by swampy land, a rarely traveled road, and minimal residents. This area is surrounded by folklore, a place where people can disappear without a trace, lost to the annals of time. But folklore and reality can sometimes bear no commonality. This is episode 33 of True Crime Real Time, Mud Lake, an update to Monica Chisar's story. And this is your host, Genevieve Germain. Just a few items about this podcast. True Crime Real Time is a bi-weekly podcast covering missing persons and unsolved murders. We're available across many platforms such as Castbox, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, and many others. Links, information, and pictures relating to the cases or stories we cover can be found on our website at www.truecrimerealtimepod.com or on our Instagram account or on our Facebook page. The links to Instagram, our website, and our Facebook page can be found on the podcast channel description. Photos, as well as any other information, are generally posted at the same time as when the episode is published. Now back to the show. In December of 2019, we produced a 2-part series on the disappearance of 29-year-old Hamilton woman Monica Chisar. Monica was a young mother who had a bit of a troubled past. She was described as bohemian, frequently traveling, moving from one area to the next. She had some issues with drugs and has been known to trustingly go off with random strangers. At the end of June and the very beginning of July 2018, Monica traveled from Ontario, Canada, to Portugal and then to the United Kingdom, a trip paid for by a close friend. She then returned to Canada, allegedly found a new job fairly quickly at a nearby bar, and was living on a friend's sofa close to Barton and Melvin in Hamilton, one of Ontario's larger cities about 40 minutes west of Toronto. Monica already had plans to travel to Mexico in August of that year to visit her son, who's in the custody of his father. She desperately missed the little boy and was apparently working towards being able to have care of him once again. Either immediately before traveling or very shortly after returning from her trip overseas, she had stolen some items from her father, causing some frustrations within the family, something that she had done in the past. On the night of Tuesday, July 10th, 2018, Monica was given a ride by a family friend after an alleged shift at the bar where she was working. He dropped her off just after midnight on Wednesday, July 11th, at the beer store parking lot located at the corner of Barton and Parkdale in Hamilton, instead of at the apartment building where she was staying. According to the family friend who dropped her off, this was by request from Monica, despite having several bags for her to carry. This area itself would have been dimly lit as the stores of the plaza would have been closed. Additionally, there were no immediate bars or taverns beside the beer store, although there were a few a little further down the street. It's unknown if Monica had planned to meet anyone at that plaza at the time, or she simply didn't want that family friend to know exactly where she was staying. At the time of her disappearance, she was apparently staying with a friend in the apartment on Melvin Street, close to the beer store, which was on Barton and Parkdale in Hamilton. According to the news conference in 2019, the police have not been able to trace her steps past this date and time. Law enforcement has not been able to confirm the identity of the friend where Monica was allegedly staying. The beer store parking lot would have been dimly lit at the time, with little foot or vehicle traffic, as the area is mainly apartment buildings, bungalows, the beer store, and a Kia dealership. Both the Kia dealership and the beer store would have been closed at the time. At the corner of Melvin and Parkdale was a building, previously a bar and hotel, that was being renovated into social housing apartments. This location would have likely still been under construction or a construction site at that time. This would be Monica's last reported sighting. 2 months would pass before she would be officially reported missing, something that tears her sister apart. Her sister explained to us that she had gone to Italy for a few weeks while Monica returned from Portugal in the UK. So their trips crossed paths. During that time and when she returned, she sent several messages to her sister via social media, which went unanswered. She then found out that Monica had taken some items belonging to her father. Her sister assumed she was ignoring her due to embarrassment, which had happened a few times in the past. However, shortly after this, she had realized that Monica had not posted anything on any of her social media accounts since June 8th. This was very much out of character for Monica to go this long without any activity on any social media platform. After a few discussions with family and friends, it came to light that Monica had mentioned that she had run into some trouble in her city. Whether that was Hamilton or Toronto is unknown. The reason she was saying this is that she owed money due to drugs. She also mentioned that the Albania Mafia people were after her. Could this have been the reason she stole those items from her father? Shortly after opening her missing persons case, the Hamilton Major Crime Unit stated to the media that they suspected foul play in her disappearance. On Christmas Eve, 2019, a father and son were walking through a rural wooded area, through a dense area of bush, across from a body of water that locals affectionately call Mud Lake, near Highway 6 and Southgate Road 10 in West Grey, Ontario, just west of Holstein. There they came across what they suspected to be human remains. They contacted the police right away, and the OPP Criminal Investigations Branch launched an investigation. This area is mostly wooded farmland with very few residences. The Bruce Grey OPP, or Ontario Provincial Police, were on scene for several days, along with the OPP Forensic Identification Services, the Chief Coroner's Office, and the Ontario Forensic Pathology Services Group. They were quick to block off the area to local residents with yellow police tape and road closure signs at both ends of that section of the road. The police had generators on site. This specific area is swampy and not densely populated. I can't say that enough. The few residents of the region have indicated that people commonly come here to dump items in the area because it's near the highway, but it's still very much secluded. Generally, there's little traffic, and the road itself isn't even maintained in the winter, and there is very little, if any, police presence. This area is about an hour to an hour and a half drive from Hamilton, depending on traffic. It's not densely populated, again, just off the highway, and yet secluded. The topographical area is swampy, wooded, and has thick brush. There is quite a bit of wildlife in the area, such as coyotes, which many people believe would likely spread any remains left there. How did Monica get from Barton and Parkdale in Hamilton to just a few kilometers outside of Holstein in a wooded and swampy area? She certainly didn't walk there. Law enforcement would not comment on the synopsis of events that led her from Hamilton to the location where her remains were found. Based on the location, the topography, the distance from where she was last seen, this makes me believe that this location is known to the person or persons responsible for leaving her body in this dense, bushy swamp area. And based on local folklore, as a spot where people and animals can forever go missing, this leads me to believe that she was likely not killed on site, but rather her remains were placed there. Law enforcement only communicated the confirmation of her identification in May of 2020. 5 months after the remains were discovered. This was following a thorough forensic examination. The remains were confirmed to be hers at least a few weeks before it was released to the media. Based on the lengthy forensic examination and the time it took to identify her remains, this makes me believe that her body was placed there shortly after she went missing and has been there for a very long time. Likely, she was killed shortly after her disappearance on July 11, 2018. Law enforcement did confirm when her body was first discovered that they believe that the remains had been there for quite an extended period of time. Police made no mention of any suspects at this time. However, they did indicate that several different leads are coming up through the investigation that they're following. Monica had a wide circle of associates in the Greater Toronto Area, Kitchener, and Hamilton areas. Additionally, she had many acquaintances overseas and had traveled extensively. Currently, there is a dedicated joint force between the Ontario Provincial Police and the Hamilton Police Services in order to solve Monica's murder. Law enforcement is hoping that members of the public will come forward and provide any information, no matter how small or irrelevant it may seem. If you have any information relating to Monica Chisar's case, please contact the Ontario Provincial Police tip line at 1-855-677-4636. That's 1-855-677-4636. If you wish to remain anonymous, you can contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. That's 1-800-222-8477, 1-800-222-8477, or via their online form by visiting www.cstip.ca. That's www.cstip.ca. If you want to know a little more about Crime Stoppers, how they work, please listen to episode 14 of this series called You Can Be a Hammertown Hero, part 2 of Monica Chisar's story. This episode features a special guest from the Hamilton Crime Stoppers who provides information regarding how Crime Stoppers works and how the anonymity works. This brings us to the update from Monica Chisar, and as the story develops, I will be reporting back. Remember, if you know anything with regards to Monica Chisar's acquaintances or any conversations that you may have had prior to her disappearance where she talks about the troubles that she encountered in the city from where she's from or anything like that, or you know of any of her movements after July 11th, or you know the person with whom she was staying in Hamilton at Melvin and Barton, then please contact the tip line, either again Crime Stoppers or the OPP tip line. This brings us to the end of today's episode, and I hope you'll join me again for our next episode.
I'm Lindsay Valenti.
And I'm Madison Stengel.
And we're the hosts of Ye Old Crime, where we discuss the funny,
hey man, he's a nice guy. And they're like, no, he's disgusting. He has hooves.
Strange. There are EVPs of spirits saying, get out, in a room where patients committed suicide, and obscure crimes of yesteryear.
Here, Justin, here's your first phallic amulet.
Join us Wednesdays, wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you next time with another tale
as old as crime.
Hi there, you feel like supporting the show? If you want to listen to exclusive episodes, ad-free, and early release episodes, head over to patreon.com. That's patreon.com. There are several different options ranging from armchair detective to co-producer. The link is in the description. I would also like to thank all of those of you who've taken the time to leave me a positive review. I really appreciate all of your support. Make sure you check us out at truecrimerealtimepod.com to read the true crime article on this episode, as well as see the accompanying photos. If you have questions, comments, or case suggestions, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at truecrimerealtimepod@gmail.com or complete the case submission form on our website. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a good rating and leave us a review. This will help our reach and bring more attention to the cases we cover. Hi guys, welcome to the little extra bit at the end of this episode. I know last time I said we were going to talk about Pamela Harris today, which was, it's still underway. I'm just going to put it that way. I'm actually just waiting for some feedback, some information from the Waterloo Regional Police. So I haven't received the response that I wanted just yet. So I'm just waiting on that so that I can finalize that piece, but it is coming. One thing I did kind of debated on the timing for this update for Monica Chisar. I just kind of felt like it was the right time at the moment. Of course, when I did find out about the discovery of her body or her remains, it was actually in March, at the end of March, and which happened to be just a little bit before it was out in the media. I didn't want to I didn't feel like it was time for me to come forward with that information. It's probably still raw for the family. I mean, it's still raw now for the family, and I also didn't want to betray the trust that somebody gave me by giving me that information, because of the relationship they have. So I mean, that's the whole reason. I'm happy to see that there is some joint work being done between the two regional areas, which I mean is common practice since the missing persons that actually occurred out of Hamilton, and obviously her body was found in the jurisdiction for the Bruce Gray OPP. So the OPP would be involved with the Hamilton police, but I just think that it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot better to have more than one police department working together, just because of resources. If even only for that. I think we talked about Hamilton police. You know, Hamilton is one of the larger cities in Ontario, and there is quite a bit of crime, if I must say. And there's a lot of organized crime in this. I mean, there's a lot of organized crime in Toronto and in surrounding area, but there's a significant amount of organized crime in Hamilton. So as you can imagine, their staff is quite busy. And I think we talked and we touched about, you know, colder cases, and they do a significant amount of work, but you got to understand, it's just they don't have the resources to have a dedicated staff for cold cases. And not that Monica's is a cold case, but that being said, knowing that they have to continuously prioritize, and there's always new stuff coming in, and those first little bits of time are essential in any investigation. So it's just nice to see that there's additional resources working on Monica's case. I did struggle with the fact, to bring up her drug use. I think it's important to still put in. And she did. There's a lot of people out there that struggle with drug abuse, issues and addictions with drugs. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. It doesn't mean that they deserve what happens to them at all. Monica, yeah, she had some troubles, but ultimately she has a family. She was loved. She has a little boy who'll never know his mom. I think he was only 3 at the time, and so he's missing out on having a mom. And she, despite her issues and despite falling back into drug abuse and whatever else, her sister did mention that she was really trying to turn her life around, and for the sake of her son, because she wanted to be able to care for him and see him more often. And so hopefully something will come of this. And like with anything, if you feel more comfortable, if somebody's out there and knows a little bit about it, if you feel more comfortable shooting me off a message or an email, you have that here with me to be able to listen to, or you can communicate with me via my Facebook Messenger. Not Facebook, but Facebook. On our Facebook podcast page, there is a area where you can send an email, and it will either come through Messenger or will go through email. I did set up the email on that. Otherwise, my email is truecrimerealtimepod@gmail.com. Very simple, and you can reach out to me via that way. Anything at all with regards to Monica. If you don't feel comfortable for whatever reason going to the OPP tip line or to even Crime Stoppers, you can come to me as well, and I can relay that information as best as possible. But hopefully something will come of that, and they'll have some answers, and Monica will get some justice. So other than that, I don't really have a significant amount of additional information with regards to this. This is in fact the additional information that I had. The only thing to mention was the folklore behind that area, and allegedly this is like a bit of a legend or folklore of that specific mud lake and area. They're saying it's all quicksand and swampy stuff in there, and back in the 1930s there was like a whole group of people on horseback that went riding into that wooded area, into Mud Lake and what have you, and they were never seen again. So in essence, the story kept growing that basically they were enveloped by the swampy area. So that is kind of like the legend of the folklore behind that specific area. It's the story of that area. I didn't quite put that into whatever. The other thing that I could mention on this one is one of the residents there said, usually they are keen on if they do see a car going into that area, they, try to find out what's going on, and they keep an eye on it because not a lot of cars travel in that area. That being said, somebody could have driven up there at nighttime, and if everybody's asleep, nobody's going to see anything. Also, there's like 4 or 5 residents. There's really not that many people. So the chances are that somebody could go up there without being noticed. And there was one occasion a few years back where, I don't know how long back, but quite a few years back, where somebody had driven to that location and had committed suicide in that area as well. And so that body was discovered as well. So that's kind of the additional information. Now, a little bit about Pamela Harris. We're working on that still, like I said. Just waiting on some information from the Waterloo Regional Police. I sent a request off for some additional information for a statement and the preferred method of contact should anybody have any tips. So that's coming. I might reach out to see if her husband at the time would speak to us. His name is Alan. And, somebody, for this case itself, somebody had reached out to me and, suggested I cover this case on the podcast, try to bring more attention to it. And I'm going to try my best to get as much information, I guess, that I can, that will be given to me, that we can put out there that are not considered holdbacks. And actually, since I'm talking, this is something that I want to know, and I couldn't find the answer. So maybe one of you guys can find the answer for me. One of you guys must be better at trying to find this stuff than sometimes I am. And I've had a couple of you in the past help me with that. So thank you so much for that. So I'm going to put it out here. Oktoberfest in Kitchener, Ontario, 1988. I'm trying to find out the exact dates of Oktoberfest 1988 and also the exact location of where that would be in Kitchener and a little bit about it. I want to know, because listen, I've never been to an Oktoberfest and I'm not originally from Ontario, although I've lived here for quite a long time, but I'm so close to Kitchener, guys. I've never been there, but I've been to Kitchener. I never been to an Oktoberfest. In any case, any listeners know anything about the Oktoberfest in Kitchener, Ontario, 1988? I want to know the exact dates, what goes on at these Oktoberfests, and how many people are usually there, where exactly it is in Kitchener, if it changes where it was in 1988. So if there's anybody out there who was at the one in 1988 in Kitchener, I'd like to hear from you too. So email me or contact me on social media. I'm on Twitter at truecrimertpod, Instagram at truecrime_realtime_pod, I think, and email, that's truecrimerealtimepod@gmail.com, and on the website www.truecrimerealtime.com. I think it'll be in the show notes anyway. So that's it for me today. I'm going to leave off by giving you another I'm going to leave off by repeating this podcast promo of somebody I think you might be interested in listening to. So give it a go. Listen to it. Tell me what you think. Again, have a good night, and we'll talk to you guys next time.